You're listening to Brand and Boost. Brand and Boost. Brand and Boost. Brand and Boost.
Or by
It's been a long time
since
I've been on the camera.
Oh yeah, you're behind the camera.
Yeah, the last God knows how many episodes.
So this is episode 8, Debunking Business and E-Commerce Myths, Navigating the Gen Z Shift. The Gen Z would not have paused at that point. I have brought in the millennial pause.
But with careful editing.
So, young Leah, straddler of two generations.
I'm not. I'm a 91er.
90s, baby. What are we talking about today?
Well, if we follow the script that is so carefully crafted.
You are very meticulous.
I am.
So we're talking about Gen Z. I'm not sure who this podcast is necessarily oriented at. I don't want to tell Gen Z how to suck eggs or an old person explaining their thing. So maybe this is partly from the point of view of millennials and older, but just generally discussing how, I guess, Gen Z see the workplace, see their place in society.
Well, it's debunking the myth between the two generations, I think, as well. I think millennials have that view of Gen Z where it's like, oh, these are new annoying kids and things.
I guess it's a bit like everybody used to, and sometimes they still do, sort of put down millennials and you say, oh, you're a millennial, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Because at one point millennials were younger and teenagers and 20s, and then it's much the same with Gen Z. At one point they were kids, but now both generations are well into work on our long path to being 67, 68 and hopefully retiring or not, probably.
Maybe.
30 odd years to go. I think that's the big thing that I've noticed and a lot of people seem to talk about is that, Gen Z have just got to go about things in a different way. Things are not on a plate, maybe, and they have to go about things doing them their own way, be it housing or pensions and everything else. So I think from what seems to be going around, a lot of Gen Z have a lot of other interests, a lot of side businesses, side hustles, don't necessarily want to stick at the same job for 40 years and get a gold pen at the end of it.
Like I said outside, I think they're in that mindset where everything should be immediate. And I think being millennials / coming from boomer generation, is that right? I don't know what the terms are.
I think there's one in the middle.
Yeah.
X, or was that earlier? Probably should have rehearsed this bit.
Yeah, I think it is that immediate reward factor. And when they don't get it, I think this is partly the issue behind like the anxiety society kind of thing. It is a lot of younger generations that do suffer with anxiety, and I think it's partly the pressures and everything else from the older generations. Us.
It's depressing.
We're part of the older generations. We've come from a generation where it's just cynicism, it's like global trauma.
There's a lot of trauma. I mean, I know they say that a lot about millennials, that we've been through basically wars and illnesses and bird flus and every other type of thing ever since. But so have Gen Z. Like, it's not like it's been plain sailing for them. But there seems to be a lot of PTSD or trauma that millennials seem to be carrying. Obviously, millennials were the last generation to straddle before the internet. We had the funds of dial-up and being on the phone, and then your mum comes on the phone and you get disconnected and you've been spending 4 hours trying to download a track on LimeWire and then find it wasn't even that track anyway and it gave you a virus. But obviously Gen Z have been connected their whole life, and looking at the even younger generations now, the 1-year-olds and the 2-year-olds seem to know how to use iPads. Like, it's just a different way, isn't it? Yeah, Gen Z are definitely taking that into the workplace. And there's been a lot of talk about quiet quitting. Seemed to happen a lot last year, I guess, because people are working from home. They would just stop working and just do something else. They're certainly not as tolerating of bad environments as previous generations, possibly.
No, I think they're very quick to call out injustices. So that's a good point from the Gen Z generation. Gen
G. It's just different. I mean, say, obviously, we are millennials. Yeah, it's going all right, I suppose.
If you are from like either generation or even from like the older, I don't want to say the older generation, like insult people, but like
the next generation, the previous generation.
I think it's boomers and then
no, boomers
Gen
is
X.
boomers is 60s. Something like that.
Boomers, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z, and then it's Gen Alpha next or something.
We're really well prepared for it. I mean, I can talk about millennials all day and the fun of being a millennial.
Yeah, but this is part of like the Gen Z culture. I think like our generation, and definitely like the ones before, it was very formal. Gen Z are kind of off the fly. There's not too much thought gone into things, which can be good because you're not overthinking things, so there's more action being taken. But with the older generation, obviously, like I think the older generation have depression. I think they do because they've kind of been brought up to put up and shut up and kind of accept your lot. Don't strive outside the box. Whereas Gen Z have that more broader scope. They're not kind of following trend, I guess. They're kind of carving their own path.
Gen Z in particular, you know, you don't get news from traditional outlets, so that's a big shift. As Leah said earlier, you know, you get the pressure of social media and all the things that go with that, which is a very different pressure, but less news from, you know, BBC, Daily Mail, things like that. Mm-hmm. Sort of more global. Not to say they don't know what's going on, but they know it in a different way. People are telling the stories in a different way. And I think all of that comes back to our, I guess, premise for the podcast around e-commerce and business. I'm thinking that obviously just calling someone out by their generation is a very wide way of defining someone, and people are individuals very much. But there are technological shifts, industry shifts, news shifts that affect a generation in a sort of collective way, and that comes off in how they respond to advertising and how they buy, what they buy, who they buy from. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're sort of just exploring that then about how you might market to them, what they're looking for, how to get your brand across, because it is definitely different. Gen Z in particular are less about, you know, going into a Walmart or a Tesco's or a Marks and Spencer's, something like that. You know, very traditional. We just go into that shop because it's our local shop or it's the one that our mum went to. It's all about the storytelling, the making that connection to them, why they should buy a few, what are you doing for the environment, for social justice, for making their life easier, helping them get to the next level. Mm-hmm. They're looking for a lot more, as well as really quick delivery, always on time, good customer service. They're definitely less tolerant of that kind of thing. It's looking at how to break through that, I guess, and come across. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I think it is very much like a social injustice fighting generation, which has its extremes as well, where they're fighting causes just for the sake of fighting causes without much research behind certain things. They're just kind of going off face value. So that's why it is important for businesses, brands, to focus, like marketing especially, to be more relatable, to be more authentic, transparent, nothing hiding under the rug and things like that. I think they're very intuitive, Gen Zs. If something appears too good to be true, they're a bit untrusting of that. That's why I think TikTok's taken off, because it's not as visually, not aesthetic, but like you don't have to try too hard with videos.
Yeah, I guess obviously for
it's
millennial,
not as polished.
Yeah, for millennial era in particular, it was the things like Facebook and more Instagram. And obviously Instagram's still around, but it was polished, Photoshop, very, this is what we aim to do with that image. Whereas, yeah, I mean, TikToks are, or the ones that perform the best are generally the most raw, most fun,
unedited,
whatever. Yeah, and again, it's like going back to the millennial pause, which if you're not sure, it's just the fact that millennials and older generations, when we record, we wait a second because our old cameras were not as fast, so you had to wait for it to kind of start recording. Whereas Gen Z just start, and in fact, the best performing videos, they're actually already talking by the time the camera turns on. Mm-hmm.
Their brains are a lot quicker.
Yeah, they're wired that way. They have shorter attention spans, you know, down to seconds. It was always, they used to say this with websites, oh, you know, if your website doesn't load in 6 seconds, then you're off. Which at the time I always thought was, although probably true, just not practical for most websites because people's internet just wasn't as fast. Mm-hmm. But now, I mean, people will scroll off in less than a second. If it doesn't appeal,
well, even with Instagram Reels and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, like it's that first second, more or less.
Literally a second, which is why you've got to be talking already.
Yeah.
and get straight to the point or the hook. Thinking about like myths and things, again, maybe it's from the older generation, just looking in, because they can be seen to not stick at jobs or other things like that. What about a myth around the fact that they are not entrepreneurial or they don't like to work hard? What do you think on that?
I think there's a myth that they're lazy. Like, we have a couple of clients that are technically Gen Z, and I mean, they have more like get up and go in them than people my age.
They've probably just got
some people my age.
I think they've just got better knees
I
and
think
backs.
they've got that excitement thing, but that's where that anxiety factor comes in. It's that anxious, nervous excitement, because anxiousness and excitement, it's the same bar basically. That's why, like, in certain mindset training things, you actually change the word like nervous, or I'm really nervous about an interview, to excitement, because your brain, it's already on that wavelength, but it's the words that you use and things.
That comes back to one of our previous episodes about mindset.
Yeah, check the playlist.
Probably episode 1, episode 2, maybe Leah will put it in the description.
Episode 2.
Episode 2 on mindset. Have you got a positive mindset or a negative mindset or a creative
Just limit.
mindset?
It's not so much positive and negative. It's limiting or like unlimited.
But being aware of the difference, but like you say, that is very true between
So I
like
think-
nervous and excitement.
Yeah, with Gen Z, I think there is that kind of unlimited possibility, but their anxiousness comes from the fact that they've probably got the weight of the older generations that came from cynicism, hard work, austerity and things like that, and wars and God knows what. And it does affect the older generation. And I think that there is a myth with Gen Z that they're lazy and they don't want to work and things. And I think it's opposite. If anything, I think there's probably resentment between generations. Like, I can't speak for the whole generation, but like, just from an observation, there probably is like this underlying current of resentment from the older generation, because the world has completely been opened up. Like, you've got access to instant knowledge, you've got access to certain things that weren't available to the older generations. Like, you don't have to go to school for certain things, you can learn everything online now. So I think the older generation, they came from like limited beliefs. There you go. And
Diplomatic.
it's tied into technology, very much so. I think millennials used social media when it initially came out to kind of connect and...
You mean the Facebook?
the face with Bebo, I was thinking
Bebo
of.
was good. Club
Bebo,
Party? Anyone Club
Party, MySpace.
MySpace. Tom, hit me up.
Anyway,
Still my only friend.
My first friend. But yeah, I think social media was kind of like a new thing, but no one really knew how to use it. Yeah, it was to connect and like pen pals and all that thing, and share your music and interests and things.
So I've just remembered one previous to that, which was CFAX. Remember CFAX and Teletext?
Yeah.
And they had the pen pals on there.
Yeah.
I had a pen pal in County Down, I think. It's good.
You wrote a letter on
a typewriter.
On a typewriter.
And I'm not.
There you go,
Boomer.
boomers.
We did have computers in those days.
We did. I remember watching a video of like someone. I think it could have been Princess Diana. I don't know if we're on trend.
Yeah.
But she was placing an order online, and it was like the first UK order or
yeah.
something. Yeah. But it was like green text, black background, probably like an hour or something to type. I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see how it reacts, because it's like I say, we millennials, we were straddling that generation between CFAX and black and green screens and all that kind of BBC computers we had at school, things like that. And then obviously evolving into social media and stuff, but it was always newer to us. I wonder if the big shift will be, though Gen Z are, we're brought up on internet and social media and, all of those kind of things, whether the next generation is going to be brought up on AI and how that's going to change, because I think Gen Z will relish the change generally for AI, but actually they are having a new boundary. So just like we were the internet, the last before the internet, they're going to be the last generation before AI becomes absolutely prevalent, which it seems to be going that way. So maybe they'll feel the hand of time on them as well. So we'll see how they go.
It can go either way, because I think they're more eco-focused. It might get to a point where, because I think this is probably the risk of AI, it might become too much of a novelty where it will kind of just fade off into the background and just be used corporately and everything else. Because it's hard to kind of appeal AI to the general population, I think, because it's taken away that it's very much doing what social media did. It's taken away that connection factor. So yes, you might have a question and you get an instant answer, but it's there's no tone to it, there's no emotion. So it'll either starve the generation to the point they crave that thing outside of computers and technology and things, or I don't know, we'll all be microchipped and know everything.
Quite possibly the latter. Wasn't Elon Musk going to chip people?
I mean, they do that anyway. They're kind of exploring those things with warfare, like cyborg technology and all that thing.
I mean, we've obviously got a fulfilment centre. Maybe I should put a chip in the back of their heads.
Maybe. I don't know. I think AI will get to the point when it's like actual robots, like what you see on
I think the good thing
sci-fi
with, say,
films.
some of these things is there's obviously laws and frameworks being put in place to protect certain things with AI. And as we've said with Gen Z, they can be quite vocal and stand up for their rights and the rights of others, more so than a couple of the last generations, I would say. You know, they're not afraid of putting their head above the parapet or protesting, and I think some of that will probably be required to ensure that how AI evolves is fair and equitable and actually brings people in who were maybe sort of shunned by society or find it difficult to integrate into society. Some of that might help, hopefully. Either that or we worship our robot overlords.
I don't think it will be that. If anything, I think it will be a case somewhere down the line. Because I find Gen Z very happy-go-lucky, even though they're anxiety-fueled, but I think that is very much outside factors. But they're very innocent in a way, because they haven't experienced all the drama from generations past. And I think it might get to a point where millennials will influence AI to kind of have that superiority factor, maybe. It's like a supervillain origin story, maybe. I don't know, maybe I should take notes.
There's definitely some real-life superhero villain movies coming out, but play that in real life.
Well, I mean, the thing is, with governments, there are, like, Gen Z do have that social injustice fighting quality to them, and I think there might come a point where governments will lose that influence. And, I mean, they're struggling at the minute to have that influence over the population. I think we're kind of two minutes away from civil warfare, maybe.
There's the clock that counts down.
But I'm a millennial and I'm very cynical and doom and gloom.
I mean, that is pretty much the definition of a millennial, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We do try.
We always look for the worst, but I think it's because when you're accustomed to like the worst, when the good stuff happens, you're more surprised by it, pleasantly surprised.
We're always thankful for it. I'm always...
Try to be.
Anybody wants to give us some good news or share good news, I'm always up for that.
Yeah.
I think millennials and millennials, in particular, relish in other people's happiness as much as...
Definitely.
As being depressed. Like, we want to see the good in people. And same for Gen Z, it's just that they'll do it all online.
Gen Z have a big potential to really change the course of humanity. I mean, if you look, the current state of the world is at the hands of like previous generations. It's not down to Gen Z. It's a shame.
Well, it's not even the hands of boomers. Like, if we're looking at the best that America can offer, sorry Americans, your president and future probably president are late 70s, early 80s. It's always a bit. I mean, there's being wise, and I'm not saying anything about anyone's age. If they can function properly, then fine. But, thinking you've got 7 billion people below the age of 70, you would hope that you could find someone who's a bit more
open-minded.
Yeah.
I think the older generations are rigid, but that's not down to them either. It's it just goes back and back.
I mean, we'll end up talking about global politics or something, which is again a bit depressing. But I mean, all of this stuff with
it's all connected.
We're citizens of the earth, not citizens of a tribal.
This is why I'm moving to Devon. I'm too like gypsy, sensitive, creative.
We need to be more like bonobos, not chimpanzees. That's what I say.
But it is all connected because this is the pressures of like the new generation, it's the pressures of our generation as well, but we've kind of, I don't know if we're kind of stepping back into that role of just kind of put up, shut up, you know, it's gone on for so long, that's kind of it, accept your lot. Whereas Gen Z, I think they have that curiosity that we lack as a generation, possibly.
But I think, say, swinging that all back then, that's what gives them, and seems to be proving, that they will a lot of the time have side hustles, side businesses, you know, more than one outlet for their enjoyment and their work. So they may have a job, probably have a job, but also have one or two side businesses. And certainly we are seeing that. Like Leah said, we've got Gen Z clients, which are great, and we're seeing more and more of that. So the biggest, the fastest growing companies are Gen Z companies, ultimately. You know, the brands, the fashion brands and the perfume brands that are growing so quickly.
See, I admire like millennials. I think they're
Not Gen Z.
they're Gen Z. I get confused. That's a millennial thing. No, I do. I admire Gen Z for their curiosity more than anything, because me, with all my spiritual rants on my YouTube thing.
What's your YouTube channel called?
Leah Solomon is very creative. Yeah, a lot of my videos, they are tailored to kind of what's wrong with the world. Not necessarily spiritualism, but it is that mindset factor. And I think the cause behind a lot of like mental health issues is that kind of lack of curiosity and that lack of hope almost. There's like that sense of what can happen for the good, like constant questioning thing. So I think Gen Z have that.
So how can other generations appeal to Gen Z, to all of those things we've talked about? How can they connect with them? Yeah.
Be honest, be open. Stories is the main one. Don't be ashamed of your story. Like Gen Z, I think they're so non-judgmental. And I mean, that comes into all the different social labels and whatever discussions they're having. Because the older generation were taught not to kind of share their laundry, wash their laundry in public, you know, don't talk about feelings, don't talk about like problems, just kind of put up, shut up. And that's kind of what we came from. So yeah, it's that relatable quality.
Being authentic.
Authenticity, that's it.
Yeah. You're not going to connect with everyone. You're not going to appeal to everyone. But if you are authentic and honest, you will find your tribe and they will find you. You get fiercely loyal, you know, customers. And in marketing things, you always say you want like raving fans, you know, who may not even be customers, but they are not raving lunatics, you know, they are like really passionate supporters of your business. That's what you want. And I think Gen Z in particular, when they find that tribe, and they're not judgmental to different age groups and things, so definitely don't worry about that. They're open to most, but it's just that you might not appeal to them and they might not appeal to you, but someone will. And I think if you can capture that in your marketing and your products, have a conversation with them about what they like and what they don't like, that kind of thing. That's gradually shifted over the years. Back in the day, whatever that day was, it was, you know, you make a product, exactly. You make a product and you push it out to the market. You might have done like focus groups and stuff like that, but realistically, you made a product and you chuck it out there and hope for the best. Whereas they're a lot more tailoring it.
No, if anything, I'm thinking to the 80s where it was all airbrushed, like magazines and Photoshop and whatever else followed. It was more making it as shiny as anything, almost unrealistic, and it's creating that unrealistic goal that people strive for, which then created like this hollow industry. Like, I think that's a myth as well, that business is very hollow. I think there are certain larger organisations that do have a bit of heart to them, and then the other hand, there are the super villains.
I think it's like with the social championing of issues. I was listening to a good story the other day about how organisations like Ben and Jerry's, The Body Shop and certain other brands have always had certain motivations and social strategies and wills for good. Don't mind us, just have your Greggs. But because they've been honest from the start, everybody knows that The Body Shop has certain aims and goals for how it does things. It won't do animal testing and all that, you know, it's very clear on that. Other businesses are pivoting more towards those positions, which is good, but people don't believe them because they've come from other ways. And you definitely don't want to be doing something like, oh, we used to do something bad or now considered less good, but now we've just switched, so trust us. You know, you're going to have to work hard on that as an existing brand to get that across. And I think it's just that same authenticity that if you've had that from day one, or that's what your message is, and you want to do something good, then you can, and people will support you on that. Having a higher purpose, I think, is good for all organisations. They are hopefully a change for good.
It's building that sustainability, like not just for the environment, but for generations basically to come. So yeah, with Gen Z, there is no like room for greenwashing. There's no room for like trying to say something's great and really it's not, because if anything, they opened, well, I mean, millennials did really with like review videos and things like that. I don't think companies predicted, say 20, 30 years ago, that the general public would be doing as many like reviews like on products as they do. I was on a good train of thought then. I was like,
That's fine.
That's
So
caffeine depleting.
well, you just had your coffee, so you can't use
I had a
excuse.
sip.
So thinking about Gen Z as the driving force behind changing business dynamics, I think you had a few thoughts on AI and marketing.
Yes. So I can't remember when. It was the autumn fair. So in Birmingham, in the NEC, every year there's 2 fairs, trade fairs for retailers and fashion mainly, but it does attract a bigger audience than just wholesalers and purchase managers. They do hold talks. So I attend these events for the talks, and one particular one was on AI marketing. Now, because I'm a millennial and
You're old.
I'm old, I found that interesting. So I went along, and before the guy had really gotten into the talk, everyone had sat down and he introduced himself, and it got to the point where he was saying what the talk was about. So like introducing AI marketing to your business, and a group of like teenagers and Gen Zers got up and walked off, and I found that so interesting because it goes back to that attention span thing. You obviously didn't catch them, or they already know about it. It was that kind of thing. So that really piqued my interest.
Was there anything in the actual topic that you remember?
For the AI marketing? Yeah, I learned all about Google Analytics changing their analytics tool to G4A.
Which happens in like
It's already happened.
but the deadlines I think is in June.
June 8th or something is when...
Going off topic, but it is very important, and it's on my to-do list because your Google Analytics will stop working on that day.
Yeah, the new one, it's supposed to be similar to like social media analytics, so it's a lot more easier to comprehend, so it's making it more accessible.
And it's fully anonymous.
It is,
that's what they say.
yeah, so it won't be as in-depth, but yeah, that was one factor. Different programs to use, that was another thing. I think it's Simon Kingsnorth or Kingshead. I've got him on LinkedIn as well. I think I invited him on the podcast, but he didn't answer. So,
or maybe if we learn his
Sorry.
name, then we've got more of a chance.
But yeah, it was that kind of like tailoring your business to incorporate AI. I think there's and I've seen this like the last couple of weeks, especially on LinkedIn, because it's the older generation's new Facebook, I guess.
No, because LinkedIn now, when I look at it, is full of Gen Z. Gen
Do you
Z,
think?
yeah, Gen Z have. That's what
I think
I've
it's
been on
millennials
LinkedIn.
pretending to
Well,
be.
yeah,
Gen
maybe
Z.
a little bit, but LinkedIn has been around for, I guess, 15 years now, and I was on it almost right from the beginning, and then it massively died off a few years ago, and I think everyone just forgot about it. But Gen Z in particular have found their voice on it, and again are telling stories and being generally authentic, not 100% of the time. But again, you get caught out if you're not being authentic. But it has suddenly caught up, and then I think because of that, more millennials have jumped back into it and given it another shot. And it's certainly a lot more busy than it used to be.
But that's where that AI connection thing comes in. The fact that so many more companies are using AI, especially like ChatGPT, Copy AI, Bard, Jasper, a number of different AI tools, and they're creating quantity over quality almost. So this is something that I've spotted on LinkedIn where a lot of people use, and I can kind of, I don't know if it's just my eyes, but it's because it lacks that emotion.
Yeah, no, you definitely can tell. I think as well it's where you might have previously put, I don't know, 5 lines of text, whatever, and suddenly you've now got 15 to 20 lines. And it's just like you're over-egging it, I think, a lot of the time. And that's kind of what I see as you probably put that through something and you're like, oh, this is a great post. But actually, again, it all comes back to that authenticity thing, because you're reading it going, it's good. And I think it's fine that you've put it through AI because it might have helped you get the ideas out of your head and articulate it better. But if you're just
relying on that,
just
you're
sort of
losing.
spewing out stuff, over-egging it, just adding more, again, if you think back to Gen Z in particular with their short attention span, you're going to lose them, because although you might have had a good point, too long didn't read. Right?
Well, it's
They
that
need that short thing.
human thing, because humans are just flawed, and AI, it's flawed to a point, but that's because of human influence. But like on a whole, it's kind of like that perfection thing, and it's not real. So that's what I mean. There is that kind of like, it could go either way with Gen Z. They could either get so bored of AI because it's lacking that human approach that they crave and that they relate to, especially within like marketing and brands and things like that. I believe in originality, even though I can't say the word.
Even though you can't spell it.
I have a stutter, you know.
Sorry, okay.
I hide it very well.
I'm going to get slated now. So a lot of what we've said is about not necessarily lack of attention span, but just very quick. They want to sort of find the answer whether they like it or not swiftly. Then it's about authenticity, having a connection, which leads us on to something else we want to talk about around again, it's advertising, but if not fake advertising, embellishing the truth, and the big problem with things like greenwashing. Do you want to explain a bit about what greenwashing is and why it doesn't wash?
So it goes back to that making something as flawless as anything. Greenwashing is when a company says they're environmentally friendly, but really they're not. And all it takes is like a bit of like research to see where their practices lie, and then you'll find out that they're not actually as environmentally friendly as they claim. So that's what greenwashing is. There isn't really room for that within this generation. They will kind of research where something comes from. I think back to that Sheen documentary. I think it was a team of like Gen Z researchers behind it. The thing is, with the corporate side where it's like fast fashion, they are trying to keep up with that fast attention span thing.
Very short trends, aren't they?
But it's short-lived, and again, it's that kind of lack of like humanistic. Yeah, humanistic, is that a word? I think it is.
So.
It's that humanistic like care factor.
I mean, let alone the fact that things like greenwashing and not caring about your supply chain and the people involved can be illegal sometimes. Like, if you say you are green and you are not, you can get in trouble for that. The biggest things I find in terms of like greenwashing is things where they say they'll plant a tree, which might be good, but doesn't usually counteract the damage that's been caused. Or they're actually just giving money towards some green initiative. It's a bit like with the Dolphin Safety Award, and basically that's an organisation that is run by the fishermen, and it's kind of not necessarily whiter than white. They're doing their own homework, as they say. And the same with child labour or not paying people properly. A lot of the time you'll see it, and it doesn't take a lot of research usually to see that, yes, between this organisation and this organisation it is fine, above board, but actually then they've subcontracted that to somebody else who's not above board at all, and they could have and should have done due diligence and checks properly, because they will get found out. And lots of organisations have gone to the wall or lost significant amounts of money because of it. It should be bedded into who you are and doing it properly, because otherwise you are short-sighted. Like with the Sheen type thing, it's very seasonal, not even a season, it's like weekly, but that is causing damage to people and the environment in particular.
Well, that's another risk thing with AI. If it does get broader to the point everyone's using it on their phones, that will mean more servers, that will mean more carbon.
Yeah, and that's
footprint.
a massive thing, isn't it? Because Even like now, I've got 3 or 4 different cloud storage services. Half of them come bundled with your phone or with your computer. All of your data is being backed up online just because all of those screenshots and blurry photos and pictures of the floor that happen to end up on your phone are getting saved to 5 different places, spread across the world so that you can access it quickly for 5 billion people. And the amount of junk that is just being stored for no reason is a real problem. And they are using humongous amounts of power and resources and pumping out heat.
I think that's
Gen
why
Z are people who probably have to experience it more than others. It's obviously every year and decade of climate impact is affecting the younger generations more and more. So they are going back to say the Gen Z side, they're going to feel it more than the older generations.
So going back to marketing, how do you market to the Gen Z? It's about building long-lasting, sustainable,
Just honest,
things
sort
of
true
value.
feedback. Yeah.
Yeah, things that bring that community factor. I think that's kind of what humans crave anyway, regardless of generations, business, whatever else, is that community thing. I think, if anything, that's kind of the cause behind a lot of wars. It's some individual that feels lonely and can't connect, and then there's resentment. I'm going into like my philosophical mindset thing, but it's all connected, and I think that's kind of what Gen Z has the potential to bring into the world, the fact that we can bring that connection back. Like, I think Gen Z are very proactive compared to millennials when it comes to like social media anyway. Like you were saying with like TikTok videos where they're going out to the general public and they're asking questions. I don't think millennials would ever dream of that.
We'll be too scared to do that.
No, just put a post online, hide behind the keyboard, whereas Gen Z are actually going out and interacting.
They are the face, aren't they? And that is so much better. And as millennials, I guess we both go through this and having to make that sort of conscious decision to be in front of a camera on a podcast. It's not a normal thing for most millennials, but Gen Z have embraced that, and that even if it's just in like cost and things, it's so much easier because if you are the face, you can go out and do it yourself. You've not got to rely on somebody else to do it for you, who you've then got to try and
give me notice
portray your
before
brand.
you sack me away.
Well, no, you don't. It's fine. But yeah, that 100% that is true. That they are getting their face out there.
I was trying to be discreet.
Worst thing is it's cold coffee.
It's still caffeine.
It's decaf.
I knew it wasn't doing
Do you know
anything.
what because we're on the NatWest Accelerator and I was at NatWest this week. But I realised that I've been drinking decaf coffee there for the past few weeks, which probably explains why I was
Shattered.
somewhat more tired when I was there. So yeah, I realised wasn't even drinking caffeine, so that was a waste of my time.
So yeah, giving tips, I guess, to business owners, because I think you're trying to kind of like build a business that's going to last, hopefully anyway. Otherwise, like, you're just kind of setting yourself up for constant stress and all that thing. So yeah, long-term tips, I guess, to market to millennials and Gen Z, because I do think millennials. I grew up like watching cartoons of superheroes and all that thing. So it is that kind of, like, for me personally, like I said, I can't speak for a whole generation, but don't condemn a whole nation for one man's thing. What was that? I don't know. Yeah, for me, I admire them because they do have that potential. I think they need that kind of support factor. And I think it's probably down to us. We are the change at the end of the day.
I think as well is because we're obviously going from maybe the entrepreneurial side, and we're saying, if you're going to start your own business or you want to market to them, obviously in terms of if they were to be in the workplace, which we still need people to work in traditional jobs, at least for now, in retail or hospitality, whatever. All of that encompassing, including marketing to them, is about they have to have a sort of reason to be there. They've got to feel like they're valued. They've got to feel like it's fair, and that you as an employer is authentic as well.
I think it's about being open-minded, because like that kind of like pinged in my head then, the tradition word. I think Gen Z don't want that kind of like tradition because they've seen other generations have this tradition where you need to go to work, you need to do well at school to get a good job, you need to get a home and all that thing. But reality of that is, even our generation, like a lot of the people I know anyway, they don't own their own homes. God knows if I'd ever get to the point of like buying a house or anything like that. And Gen Z have got that, it's almost like that conflicting storytelling thing. Well, that's what tradition means, but it's not really fulfilling.
Relevant, is it?
Yeah.
So other tips, marketing?
Yeah, back to the marketing. This is like, I think, one thing from millennials. It's that train of thought thing. I think Gen Z can get laser focused on a topic and just run with it, whereas millennials, I think you said most millennials have ADHD or something like that.
ADHD or something.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm not speaking for a generation.
We just suddenly remember, we just suddenly remember, the Iraq War, and then something else,
It is. I think we're generational trauma anyway.
We're going off topic.
Yeah.
Two more tips, please. We need some Gen Z in here. Stat.
Do you know what? I'm moving home, and it's all go behind the scenes at Rapid Pack Fulfilment. It's kind of like the.
So I think the main things: authenticity, right?
Tips.
Find your niche. Find who you are. What it is that you want to push. You can't say no because it's written on a piece of paper. Who your target audience is and how you can best
but that's
appeal to them.
e-commerce essentially.
Yeah, but we're talking about marketing. And then how do you appeal to them?
This is why I've been behind the camera, because I can't focus. I'm like a magpie. To market your business, so everyone wants to do well in business. That's why you go into business, because you have that dream thing. You have your goals and success and all that thing. So I think to market, really get behind your business, do something that you actually want to do. Yes, it's going back to that authenticity. There's no point setting up a business unless your heart is in it. That is one big selling factor to market to Gen Z. I will get to the point eventually.
If you were Gen Z, you would have said this message in 7 seconds. So what's the 7-second message?
I'll edit this so
I know you will.
like
and then you'll make me drag it out for 30 minutes like a bumbling boomer.
Because authenticity builds trust, and trust builds client base, customer base. Community, though, it's very much you want to kind of aim to build that community aspect, so you're welcoming people. Because when people feel like they belong to something, that's it, kind of thing. I think that's kind of where that generational thing of like sticking in work even though you don't like it, it's because you feel like you belong to that because you don't know any better. So it's kind of having that moral approach to it. Do you want to build something where you're trapping people or kind of welcoming people? Is that
a bit like the
tips?
old ways as well. You know, like gym memberships and things. They used to, like you say, trap you into, oh, you've signed up, oh no, you can't cancel for 12 months. And I was a bit disappointed by another gym recently that I was at, and I thought they'd all stopped all that kind of thing, and then they were like, oh, you know, you can't do that. It just doesn't wash with the newer generations. If you build that community, people will stay, but you can't trick them into staying. One more tip, please. Charge your microphone before podcast.
Preparation is half the battle. Tip number 3.
Okay, open.
Going back to like, I think it was Megan's episode, and she said about resilience.
Yeah.
Or adaptability.
That as well.
Yeah. I think it's having that factor, because COVID, for me personally, it was that thing of reminding you how human you are. So there's only so much you can control within your life. You can't control other people, you can't control situations, and that was prevalent with COVID. So it's kind of accepting what is within your control, what isn't. So using this as a marketing tip, be open-minded that anything can change and at the drop of a hat, and build up that resilience that because you're open-minded, you kind of know, I don't want to get all like woo-woo, but it's that tide kind of factor. There'll be high tides, low tides, and it's kind of knowing and accepting the fact that things can't stay the same.
That was some excellent tips.
Was it? Was it really?
That was some. So just a bit of like shameless publicity, but it all ties back into Gen Z. So if you have a side hustle or a side business or just a growing business, and you don't have to be Gen Z, you can be anyone, even the cursed millennials. And maybe you've got your own job, maybe you've got more than one job or one brand. A great way to help that along, to make it easier, to allow it to grow, is to use a fulfillment center. So if you are shipping, picking, packing, storing, you've filled out your back bedroom and then your front room and then your kitchen and everything else, a fulfillment center works really well. And you don't have to use us, though. You know, we're pretty good, generally.
I think our unique selling point is that we're kind of open to...
We are an open book.
We are. We try to be. We do try to practice what we preach. We're human at the end of the day. I think that's kind of what we...
Yeah, I think we're a reflection of our customers. So the way we are is because of the customers that we have. And
They made us this way.
Please help us. No, so because if you're looking to do it, you haven't got to be scared about it. Systems work super seamlessly, even if you have some slightly kooky sales processes. You might have pre-order items, you might have personalized items, fragile, not fragile, alcohol, perfume, not like all of them. We can handle it. Other fulfillment centers can handle it too. It's really simple. Orders come through, we ship it. Whether you're on Shopify, Magento, Ecommerce, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, TikTok, we can handle it so that your customer gets their order next day and everybody's happy and you can carry on doing what you're doing. It works really well, and so we're certainly seeing it more with Gen Z who may have more than one brand. So they might have a fashion brand and they might have a beauty brand or a bath bomb site, whatever it might be.
We very much believe in supporting our clients, and we do have that actual thing of wanting to see our clients do well. Yes, from a business point of view, because if they're doing well, we're doing well. But I think we do have that kind of humanistic, moral approach.
I like to think so. We don't
try to be.
I mean, you might disagree, but we definitely don't try and say we're things we're not or anything else. We just say it how it is. We are here for you. We want to see everybody do well. I absolutely love entrepreneurship and ambition and just seeing people bring out products and services, be it to 5 people or 5 million. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's just, if we can help you achieve what you want to do for your purpose or your organization or your cause, I am all up for that. And it's not just retail either. So if you've got like a charity, and we've got a few things like that now where you might be sending out packs to people who are bereaved or people who have lost things or people like refugee things. There's lots of like charitable things where you have to send something out, be it information or packs. I would 100% love to help people like that.
It's the only way to kind of really build anything sustainable is to kind of build from the heart. I
just think it's easier like that because although you make yourself exposed and your heart's on your sleeve and all of that, which is actually a millennial thing, heart on your sleeve, but it's just easier because you're authentic. You're not putting on an act. We're not,
It's less to remember as well.
Well, exactly. You're just saying what you think, which may or may not mean you'll come back for episode 9. But I hope you do.
And if you look how amazing this episode was.
If you want to check us out on TikTok and YouTube and the other ones, the Facebook. We're not on the Facebook, I don't think. But
I don't think we use it at all.
No, we're too Gen Z. So you can check us out on that. And also I've got my own TikTok called Ben_Rapid Pack. So that's just charting my journey as an entrepreneur and business owner of Rapid Pack, in particular looking at more of the investment and funding side and a bit just about general motivation and the good days and the bad days. So I'm just trying to keep it open and fresh.
I think with that as well, it's really interesting to watch because like I remember trying to get you on the first couple of videos and how nervous and awkward and everything else.
Still nervous and
His
awkward.
confidence has grown a lot and it's great to see that in the videos. So I definitely think watch it for that kind of progression. Your story arc. Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
So check us out, episode 9, which will be out in a couple of weeks.
Next month. I'm trying to do it monthly.
We're nearly in June. Jeez, I remember episode 1, that was like end of Q4, and we're talking about the big Q4. We'll be back again before we know it. Not wishing away the summer, but it's not looking good for that this year. Anyway.
That was a millennial comment to end. Well done.
And a British millennial, let's talk about the weather. Anyway, See you episode 9. Thanks for listening.